What's going on, legend? But welcome back to Beyond the Nine. So we've got a very special guest for you. Probably recognise our channel if you've subscribed for a while. Somebody that's not going to appear next year because we're not in the Premiership. But we've got Scott with us, massive Wolves fan for Wolfie TV. Scott, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. All good. As you say, it's like interesting to see Leicester in the Championship, but I'm sure we'll get into it on the video. I think you've got a lot to look forward to still, and it'd probably be nice to have a bit of a decent year, providing you get back up of actually enjoying winning some games, maybe going to a few new grounds, etc. So I always think when you go down, it's one of them. If you go back up the next year, you actually quite enjoy the year, don't you? But yeah, obviously still a little depressing for you guys.
Yeah, I think we're more into it now because we realize, okay, things are actually changing. And that's the main thing, because it was, again, as you found out, you were in a similar position. You weren't going to go down last season, but we'll get into that a little. You were in a similar position where I met you again beginning of last year when you were like, mate, we're going down if we keep playing like this. And we were both, anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later because we are going to talk about, again, obviously the main man, one of the big signings of the summer, Conor Coady for us. So when you first heard the news that Leicester interested, and now it's pretty much complete at this point, what were your thoughts in terms of him going to Leicester?
In all honesty, from a Wolves point of view, I think obviously, spent last season out on loan at Everton. You kind of felt maybe Lopetegui might like the look of him because, of course, he was sent out under large, but you felt that he was going to be moved on. And, of course, Everton had the opportunity to sign him for 4.5 million. So there was, in all honesty, from a Wolves perspective, I think a lot of us were quite happy because from a Wolves point of view, we've been doing business terribly over the past couple of years, buying people way above what we should, getting rid of players for less than what they should. And obviously we've had Neves that's gone for a very handsome fee, and to get like the extra money for Coady as well. I think we're kind of quite happy, but at the same time, wish him all the best and think, still think he's going to do very well for you.
Fantastic. And we're hoping so, as well, as kind of planning to come back and then come back into the Premier League as well with that. In terms of his characteristics, obviously the main reason why we're probably hiring him is because A, for his experience, and B, because of his leadership qualities. So what have you managed to see him from that, from like a Wolves perspective?
Well, he is the leader, and you even look at the one thing I would say is look at even what Gareth Southgate did about a year ago. Was it the World Cup? Was it, or no? It would have been the Euros that he was in the squad. He didn't play a minute, but he even made a comment himself about him being like one of the most important characters just because he kept the vibes up. And that's exactly what he did when he was at Wolves. He brought the vibes, he brought that affiliation, and as a captain as well between the fan base and the squad, he did very well to like mix that together. And he's just a true leader on the pitch as well. And, just not on the pitch as well. I suppose the backroom staff, he's going to be one of the as well. He's just really engages the club. And I think that's what you guys need, don't you, really? Especially when you're going through this big change process. There's going to be some players at the club that want to move on. Not all of them are probably going to get a move because you always, when you go down, you get players that think they're better than the Championship, but in truth aren't. And you need someone to really come in, get a team together, because we've seen in the past that teams can spiral out of control. The likes of Sunderland, even ourselves, if you go back quite a few years. I mean, we did the double dip. So, you need a real good characteristic and players coming in with those characteristics to get the team back forward focused. And I think that's exactly what he'll do.
Fantastic. That sounds great. And I think that's exactly what we need at the moment because, as you found out last year, we were in free fall. Can't remember we played you, what was it, 4-0? I can't remember the other score that we lost. Did we lose to you, the other score? Our ground?
I think you got a result against us. I can't remember if it was
2-1.
We've never beat you at your stadium since we came up. So I think that's one record you did manage to hold on the way down.
Yeah, that one somehow against. The thing is, at the end of the day, take that record, but take it in the Premiership as well. So I would take it we were in the Championship now, so it's good to hear that. And in terms of obviously his leadership style, that's something we desperately needed even last year. In terms of the playing style and how he plays, do you think? Because obviously we're unknown in terms of Maresca, how he's going to play. We've looked a little bit into his analysis, but do you think he's a kind of, can he adapt his playing style to different formations? Obviously, he's played under so many managers at Wolves as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting one. And I think you do have to bear in mind you're also going to be playing in the Championship next year. But when you look at when he's been at his best, he's definitely been in that back five. He started his career and spent quite a bit of it actually as a centre midfielder, and quite an average one at that. And in fact, he was probably one of those that maybe when we've got this big money, when Fosun came in, our owners, you probably would have thought he would have been one to move on. It was Nuno Espirito Santo over and spotted a new role from him, and he played that kind of sweeper role. And I think that's when he really came into his best. So like playing in that back five, being the sweeper, really can play long passes, can get things out from the back really well. The one thing that he struggles with in the Premier League within a back four is because I don't think he's naturally by trade as a centre-back. He can tackle, he can defend, but positioning-wise, he can kind of get pulled out of position, which is sometimes okay when you're in a back five, not so much in a back four. But I think for the majority of the Championship teams, he'd be able to do a job in either of those formations. The one thing I'd worry about is, you guys come back up. Is he then going to be able to do that? Because I feel like, you've had our old manager Bruno Lage that didn't think so. You had obviously Sean Dyche who didn't think so at Everton when they've played a back four. I think even Lampard stopped picking him after some time. And then obviously inevitably Lopetegui, our current manager, plays a back four. So it's not like it's just one manager's feeling, and there it is kind of across the board. But as you say, we don't actually know what formation you're going to play yet. I think if it is a back five, superb, because I think you've also got some quite attacking fullbacks as well, so it would make sense in some ways, wouldn't it? But
yeah, it would. I think you're right. Sorry, I think it's a bit lagged, but yeah, I think in terms of that, I think you're right. We're not sure who's going to be here in terms of even the fullback. Left side, yes, we probably know. Right side, we're not sure because these players are like on 100 grand a week, and in the Championship, we don't know what's going to happen
it's a
in
lot of
terms of
money,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so again, we'll have to see. But again, so he normally plays. Does he play like left centre back, right centre back, or can he play both, or like in a back three? Back three, does he play left, right, or centre?
So in the back three, he'd be like the sweeper role, so right in the middle. He'll take the ball out. He's quite good at springing like the passes out to the wings. Engaging the wing backs or the wingers. I think in the back four, he's probably. I believe he played more on the right side when we did see him at limited times in the back four. But very much a better player in the back five. But I think he can definitely do a job in the Championship at a back four level.
Fair enough. And I think he's the kind of signing that we're looking at to go, right, the ambition is to get back into the Premier League. You're mentioning the likes of we've seemed to have done things right at the beginning. You're looking at the likes of the way that Leeds are at the moment. They're just a mess, genuinely a mess. So we're looking at certain things at the moment and just comparing it to one thing I want to mention as well, because it's one problem we've had massively. Injury records, just looking at him, his injury record actually looks quite light because for us, for years under Brendan Rodgers, our injury record was catastrophe year after year. But he looks like he's stayed pretty injury free for the majority of his career.
Yeah, and I think we actually broke a record at Wolves for the most continuous games, continuous games, league games. The majority of one of the season he played every league game. He's not really someone that really gets injured or has got a bad injury record at all. So I suppose, as you say, having that stability is going to be key as well for you guys as well.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, because we don't have enough leaders in the team at the moment, and the ones that did have all pretty much left. Imagine from like the ones that won the Premier League, for example.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
one thing I wanted to mention in terms of Wolves, or even from your perspective, overall, you see this as a good. I'm guessing from what you've said, you've seen it as a good signing for LCFC, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a really good deal, to be honest. I think either formation that you play. I think the one thing that you pointed out as well, it's that leadership quality, and it's also about, when you go down, fan bases feel really separated from the club, and I think maybe you guys aren't in maybe the same position as Leeds, for example, who really just don't feel there's anyone really much in that team that they can really look up to and feel an affiliation with. But when you go down, there is a lot of that, because ultimately you've got players wanting to move on. You've got players that aren't really taking the blame for what they've essentially done, which is, especially in your guys' case, you shouldn't have gone down. Obviously, the manager is to blame in some ways, but so are the players. I think he will just come in and straight away it'll be someone for the fans to latch onto. He'll bring the passion. He'll say the right things. He'll show true care for the club. And, as long as the fans are giving him the support back, he'll equally give you that support back as well.
I think so, and I think it will be hopefully a fan favorite as well, just because of, again, as your things you were mentioning, and I'm hoping so. And in general, again, I compare it to what we're doing this season to what you did when you came up in terms of obviously the buying of Neves for the big amount of money, not in comparison in terms of that compared to Coady, but in terms of the 2017-18 season, do you see similarities between? Well, obviously we don't know at the moment what Leicester are going to do, but do you see similarities in terms of basically kind of moneyballing your way? And I'm not saying that as a bad way, because we did the same thing when we came up in 2013-14. We pretty much did the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's one of those things, especially, you look at the fact that you are going to get your parachute payments. You've already sold Madison for 40 million. You're going to get probably another 40, 50 million, I reckon, off other player sales, if not more. And, that can be reinvested back into essentially getting the side up to grips with the Premier League, to get back into the Premier League. And obviously, we've already seen you're doing it slightly different to what we did, because we brought in the likes of Neves, Jota, which you look back now and you go, absolutely sensational signings. I mean, we had a lot of help from agent George Mendes. There was no, even as a Wolves fan, there was no denying that. And we wouldn't have got those players without basically our rich billionaire owners also hiring a super agent to kind of help us in some kind of controversial way. But what you guys are doing is you're bringing in players that you think, they could play in the Premier League already. Harry Winks is another one. Cody's another. And I'd say with both of those players, actually, they're players that have had a bit of a rough time over the past 1 or 2 years, but they've got the quality. And I think maybe helping them both drop down the league, build up their confidence by, once they get that confidence, and hopefully do, you could see some actually really, really good players playing for you So I actually like what you're doing. And I've also seen, unfortunately, because he was one I was hoping we would potentially try and get ourselves, but I've seen you've linked with Perot from Swansea. Absolutely sensational player. I've been watching him for a couple of years, still only young. So if that's who you're going to get in to lead that forward line as well, I think you're just so poised to go back up, because he'll get you, especially under your Leicester side, at least 20, 25 goals in that season.
Yeah, I think we are interested in him. I think he is a good player. The thing is, probably like you, we need to get players out before we get players in.
That's
And
it.
I
Yeah.
think that's so. If you looked, the Madison thing was holding back, and then Coady, and then Winks was pretty much sorted after that as well. So yeah, and just coming away from that, because I'm hoping again we can come back up. But as you know, people that don't watch the Premiership, Championship, don't know how tough a league it is. Not in terms just for the amount of games, but you can get away with more mistakes, as you were saying. You genuinely can get more with more mistakes. I think we found out the year we came up, Paul Kaczewski and Wes Morgan, mistakes. There were just mistakes in them, and then mistakes cost us. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so and that the difference in the Premier League and the Championship. But I think it's a good opportunity to bring again. But in terms of when he was leaving to go to Everton, do you think it was the right decision, or what were your thoughts and feelings about it last year?
So I think at the time it was evident that Bruno Lage wanted to go to a back four, and I think he at the time didn't believe that Coady was able to adapt to that. You kind of look at the evidence that's maybe been presented within the last year of also Sean Dyche definitely thinking that as well. Maybe he was onto something. At the time, we were gutted to lose a leader, though, especially when, we were in a very similar situation. In some ways, I still think we are, albeit we're in the Premier League, but we're in a very similar situation. I think we find ourselves in comparable situations now. But I think last year, like your kind of downward spiral, the season before, your downward spiral had already started. And I think the same as us. So it kind of felt weird to be losing a leader. And for us, as I say, at the time, he was loaned, and then they had a buy option to buy him for just 4.5 million. Needless to say that the person that organised that deal is now not in charge of transfers or even at the club. But I think we're just a bit like, well, okay, we kind of get it, but this just seems quite stupid, especially loaning him to what we'd considered a potential rival for the season. So, it was mixed feelings, I would say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. From our perspective, it's always a good thing. It's the similar thing when we had Maresca, where it's always good when you hear opposition fans going, "Nah, I want to keep him," because obviously I want him even more, rather than take him regardless. Then you're like, thank God. And then in general, what do you think about again the future of Wolves as well? Because obviously, I've seen you've been tweeting a lot about again Lopetegui's the future's uncertain. You've got some good players in there, but again, the champ, as we found out this season, there's no, and as you know, it's not, you can't entitle to stay in the Premier League.
No, and I think that's it. Like, so basically what happened there is Lopetegui was brought in under pretenses which actually aren't apparent now. So he wasn't aware of our FFP difficulties. So naturally, a manager of his quality was a bit like, okay, this is not what I signed up for here. But having said that, he's decided to stay. We've got a new person dealing with transfers called Matt Hobbs, who has obviously nicely organised this deal. He's doing well to get a few others out the door as well. So we're in a very, why I said we're in a similar position to you guys is because we're very much in our rebuild phase as well. Of course, we've got the luxury of being in the Premier League, but we ourselves, we've now said we're not going to buy these superstars such as Guedes that you saw come in and didn't even want to be at the club. He was gone out on loan by the time it got to January. Even Mateus Nunes, and Cunha as well. Although they've done well for us, they'll do well next season. You look at both of them coming in for around £40 million. They've definitely not lived up to the hype. So we're now looking at players around the £10 to £20 million bracket, players that are hungry and more importantly, and it's funny that the club have even said this directly, they've said that want to play for the club. So similar to you guys, I think this is our biggest transfer window that we're going to have in probably the last how many years. And it's important we get it right. If we get it right, we could be in the top 10 next season. We get it wrong, we could be bottom. I really think it could be that extreme side of it, really. So, yeah, interesting year at the moment. Ask me the question come the end of the transfer window, and I'll be a bit more confident one way or the other.
I get it, man. And also that's something that happened to Leicester as well, because we were in FFP trouble last year. We sold Fofana, we couldn't reinvest the money. We had all sorts of problems. We got rid of head of recruitment left to go to Atalanta. We couldn't sign we wanted to sign Southampton's guy. He was they put him on gardening leave. We had all sorts of problems, and it looked like it's sorted out this year. But as long as in terms of do you have faith in the backroom staff and things from what you've seen so far to get this job done? Because it's really underrated how important some of them players are.
Oh, it is, and I think. Yeah, I know what you mean. No, definitely, and I think it's hard to say because 2 years ago, maybe not so much so, but we have changed things, and so far this window they are getting it right. Very untested, but we saw in our January window, obviously we got Lamina in, we got Cunha in, we got João Gomez, Craig Dawson, who was probably the most important signing of the lot. So they had one good window, so there is a little bit more faith, but at the same time, ask one day, we'll be full of faith. Ask another day, we'll probably go, and it's an absolute disaster. So there's definitely, we're unsure, I reckon, the majority of Wolves fans.
Fair enough. And again, it's good that you've got that as well in mind, that you've been in the Championship, when you know what it's like. You've got that kind of balance. You've seen, again, some of the newer fans come on with different expectations. We've seen that, and we've seen it come here first, Champions League, all sort of winning the FA Cup and then back down. So it's like we've got a similar kind of fan base in that. So yeah, but again, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate coming on. We'll leave your link to your channel and your Twitter and everything down below, but feel free to plug away as well.
Cheers. Yeah. Well, so we've actually switched back yesterday, Neil, to believe it or not, to Sweet and Sour Soccer. It's
have you? I missed it.
We've literally switched our name back, so it will be Sweet and Sour Soccer again. We're going more into talking about general football, and I think, as well as doing our Premier League predictions, I'm also going to start and bring back our Championship predictions as well. So if there's Leicester fans that might be interested in weekly Championship predictions, that's probably, at the moment anyway, your guys' reason to hit that subscribe button to our channel.
Fair enough. Yeah, I literally found out, because again, it's still, even on your Twitter, it's still called Wolfie TV.
Yeah, I'm not changing Twitter yet, mate. I did the YouTube at like literally 9 o'clock last night. I was just like, I'll leave the Twitter for tomorrow. We barely use it anyway.
Fair enough. But yeah, feel free to follow Scott. Again, I've been on the channel before. I'll probably be on the channel, so make sure you go and follow again, Scott and James over there. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.